Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. This is my weekly chatty catch-up on everything I have been reading. I think we're going to try to hurry through this because I need to make it to the library so I can pick up my one library book that I intend to read for Nonfiction November, so I can do my Nonfiction November TBR this weekend and get that up for you all next week because I'm very excited for Nonfiction November. I also do have plans for the announcement for my November readathon. It's going to be at the end of the month instead of the full month this time around, so be on the lookout. That should be upcoming this week as well. So, into what I read very, very rapidly. First, I read Women Eating by Claire Kohda, and this was a buddy read with Amy from BookTube with Amy, and I am so happy that we buddy read this because this had just a ton to talk about. There are so many threads sticking out for you to pull at. So this is very appropriate in its tagline of being a literary vampire novel. I think that's a perfect descriptor for this. So we're following this character, Lyd, who is really a disaster woman moving type character. And in the perfect way, vampirism is analoged to becoming an adult. In so many unexpected sort of executions by the author here. So Lyd is getting out on her own for the first time in her life as a kind of new adult. She has had to disconnect from this sort of toxic, very codependent relationship that she had with her mom and is sort of moving forward with her life on her own now. She's starting this internship with an art collective group sort of thing. I'm not too familiar with the artist world. She has found herself a place at this studio that she might be living in when she's not supposed to be, but she is finding her way and struggling at it, but still finding her way. She's also a vampire, obviously, so she's going through something there with food and hunger that is really intriguing because it's delivered with a lot of on-the-nose tropes, but they're subverted. They're being done in a way that applies much more to her being a new adult than it does to really standard vampire tropes. So one of the things that I really loved was it talks about her disconnecting from her childhood friend and the way that that relationship grows apart, and her thinking back to how her mother had taught her as a vampire she was going to have to really distance herself from people as she grew older, basically, and continued having a life and didn't age as her friends were aging, and she would not be able to see them. And so she's going through this very standard rite of passage where people just grow apart and they kind of become more isolated coming into adulthood if they don't continue building those relationships. And she's doing it in part because she's a new adult and in part through those very standard vampire isolation tropes. So I think that was one example of how throughout the book that is used so well. So I don't think this was a perfect book necessarily. The ending is very abrupt and it kind of just delivers her starting to find herself and her own voice, her own tastes. And we then just stop in terms of the book. So we're left with a lot of threads that don't tie up. And I think that was perfectly fine. I just really would have loved more. I would love to see another novel following Lyd. I think I have to say there are a million warnings for content on this because at every level you're seeing a lot of blood. There's some animal death, but nothing too gory or anything in there. There's definitely violence, sexual assault, and heavy warnings for eating disorder. Not just in terms of her relationship with food, but literal eating disorder does play out here. She's kind of obsessive about actual food and the fact that she can't have food. The fact that for her, food signifies this sense of belonging and culture and connectedness that she wants but doesn't have. So she then sort of seeks out people's relationship with food, both in the people's lives that she's meeting in her new communities, but also on the internet. So we see a lot of her seeking out food-related videos and even engaging with kind of eating disorder communities in a not too overt way, but there's definitely a lot of detail about her looking into people who have disordered eating. So that's very on page, on the nose, completely, overt how that is tied together in terms of her inability to eat and her looking at these people who have disordered eating and seeing it as kind of a way of cleansing herself and themselves. And so I'm not sure that was done in the most healthy way necessarily. I don't know. I don't have a good yes or no decision on my liking the way that was executed. I think it raised a lot of really interesting questions. I think it's going to be really horrible for someone who does have an eating disorder to read the way that was done. So I definitely would say stay away from this if you have any elements of disordered eating. But I do think that it was pulling in some things that really raised a lot of questions and did interesting, thought-provoking things. So that word interesting came up so much in my chats with Amy, because there just is so much about this that really is going to stick around in my brain. So this was kind of another sticky book for me this month that I'm very glad I had it on my TBR, and I enjoyed reading it so much. I really liked the character of Lyd. I loved all the new, fresh things this was doing with the idea of vampirism that pulled in tropes, but completely didn't play it like any sort of standard vampire novel. So yeah, this was a great read. Then I actually picked up a short story collection, and that is Maria by Marytza K. Rubio. And I actually picked this one up because Angela at Literature Science Alliance raved about this one a while back, I think a couple months ago, and I saw it at the library. I, at the time, had way too many things on my pile, but I had that thought in my mind, well, nobody's really talking about this, and Angela was raving about it, so I should at least borrow it and keep it in circulation from the library, right? And then 2 days later, it got longlisted for the National Book Award. So I was thinking, okay, well, I guess I do need to actually read this now, I need to push this a little up the chain. So I started picking at the stories. So this is a collection of mostly short stories. Some of them are like flash fiction even with art. And then there's one novella that is the titular novella. Now, some of the flash fiction and art is really different. So there's an art showcase section where you can see some of the art, and then, as I said, this is very much flash fiction. So I'm going to read you this one because this is one of my absolute favorites. Sugar Pyramid, Sculpture Garden, Sea Show Times. This performance art piece by experimental troupe Colibris Before Columbus challenges and confronts the objectification and exotification of hummingbirds. After 3 years of collecting stories from a variety of peer species, including the Annas, Rufous, violet-crowned, and broad-tailed, the Colibris created a pointed response to society's treatment of hummingbirds as adorable birdies, and deliberate erasure of the bird's warrior past. Warning, this is an interactive performance. One member of the audience will be sacrificed each night. Absolutely no photographs allowed. So again, you can see we've got these adorable hummingbirdies with a skull and some weaponry. So all of it was very playful in tone, I would say, and it has certainly a Latina cultural feel to it. I don't know that I loved or had any new favorites in here. Probably my favorite story in here was this sort of charming story about an elderly woman who is carrying a head to a tree to bury. And I can't tell you more than that because it would ruin it. But it's a charming story, and it's comforting in many ways without being horrifying, even though it has kind of a gory element. There's no real gore or massive horror to this. It's not spooky, even though it obviously has a skeleton on there and maybe some spoopy elements. There's definitely non-real elements, but not any actual magic. There's some maybe science fictional, but this all is in the realm of general speculative. Now, the main problem I had with this, as I said, I didn't really have any new favorites in here. I also didn't have any major duds in terms of the short stories, but the novella itself of the title, Maria, I did not understand. I could not follow what was happening. We were following these two alternating Marias. The first one, I sort of had the thread of the story when it started, where we're following a young girl, Maria, who is trying to figure out her life as this child, having just lost her mother. So we know her mother was a celebrity psychic who got affected by natural tragedy, a natural disaster, and pulled into Lake Pontchartrain with her followers. So she died in Lake Pontchartrain, and they couldn't actually go collect her and her followers' bodies. I don't know. But from there, it just continued getting weirder. There is a great journey through the jungle and kind of sacrifice and battle and monsters. And I just didn't follow it. But it has that element of being very dreamlike, where it's like you can almost grasp it. I can almost touch what it's trying to tell me and understand it, and I just couldn't quite get there. So I think this was a very good collection, and I absolutely really would like to see more from this author. I totally forgot one that I really liked too. Actually, one of the art pieces toward the back, I have to mention this one because it was just so good. It's purely a color by number type story. So that's all it is. It's this color by number. And then it has the things aligning to the numbers. And they get increasingly weird. So like the first one is just blue. And then they get more detailed. And by the end, they're very strange. So it tells you an abstract story. So I felt like this was really inventive, but maybe not my new favorite thing. However, it absolutely put the author on my radar. The last thing I read was from an author I always knew I loved, so I knew I was going to enjoy this, and that was T. Kingfisher's new book, Nettle and Bone. And it seems like the fantasy world has really been reading this all over the place, so I kind of knew I had to pick it up when I saw it on the shelf of the library. And I did, predictably, really enjoy this. I don't think it was my favorite of her work, but it's very up there with the really good stuff. Probably a 4.5 star read for me. And this was just so... It's darkly folkloric and heartwarming at the same time, as is very common for Kingfisher. So we're following Mara, who is the youngest of 3 princesses, and she has grown up and watched her older sisters kind of follow in the path that they're expected to. Her oldest sister went off and married a prince, and then her second oldest sister goes off and marries a prince. And Mara goes to a nunnery. So she goes to the nuns of Our Lady of the Grackle, or Our Lady of Grackles, which of course is exactly the kind of funny touch that Kingfisher would add. And she is there kind of so as not to be a threat to the sister that may produce an heir, right? And so when she kind of starts hearing about her sister having these pregnancies and then never resulting in a child, she doesn't really know or understand what's going on. But when she finally gets to talk to her sister, she realizes she's going through this real difficulty. And so I would give definite content warnings for that element of child loss, of pregnancy loss, as a huge element of this book. And she and her middle sister, who is going through this, really were not on good terms. They weren't friendly, but they still have this sisterly love. And that's something that I really enjoy about Kingfisher's books. She does human connection and human relationships really well with a lot of nuance. So they aren't necessarily all perfect. You could have these flawed, difficult relationships without them being like toxic. And I think that is so beautifully handled here, because in the end, Mara really just wants to help her sister out of a real difficult situation. And so Mara, being the responsible, practical person that she is, she goes off in search of a dust wife. And the dust wife is kind of like a hedge witch, basically. Some of the dust wives are more like dealing with herbs and stuff. Some of them actually have magic. And so she's going out seeking this dust wife to see what she can do to help her sister. Naturally, this sends her on an impossible quest. So that's what this book is. This book is The Impossible Quest. And so it's very much a journey novel with a quest in line. And it, along the way, has her collecting a band of adventurers around her. And they have this incredible found family feel. that is a very much a strong through line in T. Kingfisher's books. You will always have some sort of found family. Literally the last horror book of hers I read, it's like she befriends some neighbors and they kind of go, well, your house is haunted maybe, so you should either come over to us or we're gonna stay the night at your place and stay up all night and wait for some ghosts with you. So, you know, they always are looking out for each other. Everybody has each other's back in the found family of characters that she creates in her books. And it's just so beautiful and very character driven. So even though this is pretty high on plot because it has that questy journey, it's almost episodic because you're getting little stops along the way on their journey as they have to do different little tasks and acquiring new members of the band, basically, including a bone dog and a demon chicken who really steal the show. But overall, this quest is driven by sisterly love and her desire to help out as the kingdom is under threat. And so she just really finds that she has to keep moving forward even when she doesn't know what to do. So I love that practicality of the character. This is very much not a traditional heroic story. She has no drive out of heroism or desire for glory at all. She's just like, I can't stop because I have to help my sister, right? There's no other option than to do that. So I really love this. As I think I said up front, it definitely has a darkly folkloric vibe, but as with all T. Kingfisher's works, it really has a hopeful thread running through it. And I think most of her books always have a happy ending, and this does. It's not tidy, but it is happy. And so you can look for that hope in her books, even when they have a darker tone. The folklore was fabulous, and I think that's always something that is so excellent in Kingfisher's works. So just really, really enjoyed so much about this book. And it's very feminist as well. So I think that I would give content warnings for, as I said up front, there is that pregnancy loss element through here, that sisterly bond even through kind of a difficult relationship. There is overcoming domestic abuse throughout this story is a very big element. So definitely be aware of that going in, but there's nothing really gory or scary. It's definitely kind of a spoopy rather than spooky book. So you're not going to get a lot of really like graphic or gross content in here, even though it has been a little pushed as a darker book. In terms of what I have in progress, we've got the usual smattering. I'm working on Dandelion Wine by Bradbury. This I hauled earlier this year and had a massive sticker on it. The Goo Gone worked. It actually got the sticker off without ruining the cover. So I'm so happy because I adore this cover. However, this does not fit the book at all. I kind of knew that. This is very like summery slice of life vibes, and I'm definitely enjoying it. I wanted to get to it before the summer ended because of that, and it's been perfect. Then I picked up Trafik by Rikki Ducornet, and this is like a sci-fi weird short novella. This sent me down a rabbit hole looking into the publisher Coffeehouse Press and what they publish, and you will be seeing more from them because I haven't really even started this. I'm planning to read this weekend since it's tiny. But yeah, I basically was so into their vibes that I bought a bunch of stuff. So then I have to get into briefly A Delicious Life by Nell Stevens. This weekend, I want to finish this before the end of the month, and I have barely started it. So that one's going to be a priority. And then Queens of Innis Lear is still ongoing. We're still around halfway. It's been slow progress because I've been reading so many other things. So this chunky fantasy book is one I need to start chipping away at a little more, I think, so that I can actually move on and not be constantly mired in this one. But I am liking it. The writing is really beautiful. That is all for books this week. In terms of what I watched, I think I have started back up a bunch of things that I dropped midway in terms of shows. So I haven't finished anything this week, but I did watch a movie. I rarely watch movies. I just can't sit through 2 hours anymore. I don't have the attention span, but I did. So I watched Do Revenge, which is kind of a Strangers on the Train type premise, where you've got 2 girls at a private school, and one of them is like the queen bee, very, very well-known popular girl, and the other one is a newcomer to the school. And through a sequence of events, they come into contact and decide to do each other's revenge. And that's the premise. I knew it was going to be pretty compelling, and I think that's really all there is to it. There's a lot of teen drama, and there's kind of a lot of partying, so this is very much rich kids behaving badly for most of it. So it's that sort of thing. So I didn't love it, but it was definitely compelling to watch, which was exactly what I was looking for, like really compelling and brain fluff. So I did get that out of it. And it was weird because Maya Hawke, who's probably most popular from Stranger Things, I think, she is in this as one of the main characters. And in Stranger Things, I never saw the familial connection with Uma very strongly, but here, like, it's so clear. You can see a young Uma Thurman in a ton of the scenes here. It's really, really strong resemblance. So that was cool to watch. So I think that's it for watching stuff. So life stuff, I don't think I really have a ton to talk about. It's crazy, crazy hot right now. Literally just having the windows closed to do this is making me sweat. So we're gonna try and wrap this up quick. I got out to the park with Cinema today. I forgot to take any footage because we were just enjoying it because it's 80 degrees again out of nowhere. I already just put the electric blanket on the bed because it was getting down to freezing, and now it's hot again. So I think we're supposed to have really nice weather this weekend, so I'm gonna spend most of it outdoors. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my week. So into recommendations, I just have a couple. So the first one is that I actually saw this at another site than the video is for, but Poets and Writers is apparently a magazine I have not been familiar with, but I'm going to check out much more of their site. They shared a video of Joshua Whitehead being interviewed on like a morning news type program. And so short, it's only like 5 minutes, but he's being interviewed for his new book, Making Love with the Land. And just that 5-minute clip completely sold me on wanting to pick up the book. It was so insightful, these just 1 or 2 sentence answers he had. So really, really interested in picking up that book. I've needed to pick up Johnny Appleseed as well from Joshua Whitehead for the longest time, and I still haven't. I know. But yeah, definitely check out that video. I will link that down below. Then I have a publisher spotlight that Shannon from That's So Poe did on books from the publisher Levine Corrido, who do a very niche, like Latina, Indigenous, very diverse authored books with children's, middle grade, and YA literature. And all of the books I've picked up from them have been really good, and I definitely want to read more. I know A Snake Falls from Earth by Darcy Little Badger is one of their books that was recently up for the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize. The winner of that was just announced as well. I will link that information down below too, because I really want to read the whole Ursula K. Le Guin Prize long list. But I do need to get to the winner soon. Yeah, so that's my recommendations for the week. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful week, and thanks so much for watching. A big fluffy caterpillar on my door, trying to sneak in my house. Stepping about. Is it a cat hunt? Pretty serious cat hunt. There's at least 2 cats in that bathroom. Suspect that Ripley is in the bathtub, Rue is outside the bathtub, and Gumbo is watching. There goes Gumbo. There's Rue. Rue's outside the bathtub. Ripley is inside the bathtub. Suspected it.